Chapter 1. On my son's birthday, my husband asked his first love to come pick him up from our home. I stubbornly refused to let him go, and as we argued, a fierce fire broke out in the hallway. I was struck by falling debris, my head bleeding profusely, but I shielded my son beneath me, leaving him unharmed. But when my firefighter husband arrived to rescue us, he grabbed the only gas mask and handed it to his first love. Aunt Anna isn't well, Daddy. Save her first. Mommy, you wait for another firefighter to come and rescue you. I watched them leave, a bitter smile forming on my lips. It seemed they had all forgotten that I suffer from severe asthma. Without a gas mask, I could die. Amidst the flames, I watched helplessly as my husband carried another woman, desperately rushing to safety, and the son I nearly died to bring into this world stood protectively by her side, worried she might fall, occasionally reaching out to steady her. From beginning to end, neither of them looked back at me. My heart ached unbearably. I was supposed to be their family, but in the face of life and death, they didn't hesitate to abandon me. Half an hour earlier, Anna had knocked on my door, wanting to take my son out for his birthday. I coldly refused, but Lucas, who had been doing homework in his room, heard the commotion. He burst out, pushing me aside and grabbing her hand, his face beaming with happiness as he headed out. My heart ached, but I stubbornly tried to stop them. But my son bit down hard on the arm I used to hold him back, his eyes filled with a hint of hatred. Why won't you let me go with Aunt Anna? If it weren't for you, Aunt Anna would be my mom. I wish you were dead. He must really hate me for biting my arm so hard it bled. As we argued, the fire broke out in the hallway. We were trapped, anxiously waiting for rescue. My son didn't spare me a glance, staying close to Anna, patiently comforting her like a little adult. Don't worry, Aunt Anna, you're so important to Daddy. He'll come save you first. I was heartbroken, nearly shattered. 7 years, surely even a dog would have developed feelings by now. But he hadn't. All he felt for me was hatred. And the reasons he hates me are so ridiculous. It's just because I refuse to buy him outrageously expensive toys, or let him play on his phone before finishing his homework. Most importantly, I refuse to step aside and let Anna be his mother. Yet, even so, when I saw the stone slab above him about to fall, I didn't hesitate to rush over and shield him with my body. The slab struck me, leaving my head bleeding, but he pushed me away, worry etched on his face as he grabbed Anna's hand, asking if she was okay. Even when Alex burst through the door wearing a gas mask, my son immediately ran over, grabbed the only gas mask, and handed it to Anna. Dad, save Anna first. She's not well. Let another firefighter rescue Mom. Tears welled up in my eyes as I managed a bitter smile. I raised the almost empty bottle of my medication and told them, my medicine is running out. I can't survive much longer in the smoke. 7 years ago today, I lay on an operating table, bleeding out during a difficult childbirth, teetering on the brink of life and death. Before I lost consciousness, I clung to Alex's hand, begging him to save the baby no matter what. If the worst should happen, I told him to choose the baby over me. But today, 7 years later, the child I nearly died to bring into the world was clinging to Alex's hand, begging him to save someone else first. Alex looked at me coldly, cradling Anna in his arms. His icy tone sent shivers down my spine as he said, Laura, this is what you owe Anita. Just wait a little longer, my colleagues will be here soon. Desperation to survive drove me to grab his sleeve and beg, Alex, I'm pregnant. You can hate me, but you can't abandon the child I'm carrying. A flicker of shock passed through Alex's eyes. He had barely been home lately, and I hadn't told him. Seeing his hesitation, Lucas angrily pried my fingers off one by one. Mom, you can't be so selfish. How could you lie to Dad? Anna sobbed uncontrollably in his arms. The compassion in Alex's eyes quickly vanished as he shoved me aside, carrying Anna out the door. Thick smoke engulfed me, and my breathing grew more labored. The inhaler in my hand was nearly empty. I took one last deep breath, closed my eyes in despair, and a wave of bitterness washed over me. If only I had never started this doomed relationship. Chapter 2. From the beginning, I knew Alex didn't love me. My unrequited love was no secret throughout our 4 years of college. but he already had his first love, Anna. And naturally, he didn't care about me. As graduation approached, Anna accepted her family's arrangement to study abroad for her master's degree. The day she left, Alex, reeking of alcohol, came to find me. He was drunk, holding me in his arms, but calling out Anna's name. I loved him so much that even knowing he had mistaken me for someone else, I still let myself indulge in that fleeting moment of passion. But it was a mistake, and the next morning, he threw my clothes at my feet, telling me to get out. What I thought was just a one-night stand turned into something more when I found out I was pregnant. Alex gave me a wedding, allowed me to keep the baby, but named our son Lucas. He must have truly not loved me, because when Anna returned, he let her provoke me repeatedly, even allowing her to come to our home and take Lucas away. When I hysterically questioned Alex, even our son sided with him. He said, "Mom, you're not as pretty as Aunt Anna, and you're not as gentle as she is. Why don't you just leave? Then Dad can be with her, and Aunt Anna can be my mom." My consciousness grew more and more blurred, and I could barely keep my eyes open. I slumped weakly to the ground, unable to muster the strength to stand. Through the suffocating smoke, I saw a small head poke through the door. He spoke timidly. "Auntie, do you need help?" I struggled to open my eyes and saw a little boy, about the same age as my son. His face was covered in dirt, but his eyes shone brightly through the thick smoke. He was so small, yet he used all his strength to help me up, supporting me as we slowly made our way out. The journey was incredibly difficult. There were many times I wanted to give up, but the little boy kept dragging me along, refusing to let go. When we finally made it out of the fire, he was so exhausted that he collapsed to his knees, yet still didn't forget to call for a doctor for me. I held him, sobbing uncontrollably. On the way to the hospital, I learned that he had no parents, and his grandfather had also perished in the fire. In the ambulance, he buried his face in his hands, trying to stifle his sobs, afraid to disturb anyone. I felt an inexplicable ache in my heart and took his hand, asking if he would let me adopt him. His eyes lit up with joy, but he still held back, shaking his head and saying he didn't want to be a burden. I gave him a bitter smile and told him that since I'm already a big trouble myself, how could I be afraid of anyone else being a burden to me? We made a promise that once I got out of the hospital, we would start the adoption process. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days due to inhaling too much smoke. I couldn't keep the baby. During those 3 days, Alex and my son didn't visit me once, not even a phone call, even though they were just in the room next to mine, busy taking care of Anna, who wasn't even injured. The only one by my side was the little boy who saved me. He told me his name was William, a name his father had given him. He said that if I was willing to adopt him, he'd let me change his name. I patted his head and shook my head, refusing. "I'll adopt you, but you don't need to change your name. From now on, you can do anything you like, you don't have to compromise, okay?" William's eyes crinkled with a smile, and he affectionately rubbed his head against my arm, softly saying thank you. It had been so long since anyone had said thank you to me. Alex and my son used to find me annoying and never once thanked me. I was moved and hugged him, smiling for the first time in a long while. I encountered Alex and my son in the hallway. I had just undergone the abortion, and William was carefully helping me back to my room. We turned a corner and came face to face with Alex and my son, who were helping on a walk. The three of them were chatting and laughing, looking more like a family. I thought I would be heartbroken, but surprisingly, I felt nothing. I simply walked past them in silence. It was Alex who couldn't hold back and called out to me. When I turned around, I saw a flicker of concern in his eyes. He asked me, "Laura, are you hurt?" I almost wanted to laugh. Of course not. I just had an asthma attack and nearly died in the smoke. My head needed a few stitches and is still wrapped in bandages. But apparently, he's too blind to notice. Oh, and I lost the baby, too. But perhaps that's a blessing, considering it would have had such a cold-hearted father and brother. When I didn't answer, Alex's gaze slowly dropped to my abdomen. Seeing my flat stomach, he let out a mocking laugh. "Laura, I actually thought you were pregnant, but I guess Sisu was right. You were just selfishly trying to trick me into saving you first. Lucas stood beside him, glaring at me with resentment. Chapter 3. At this point, there's no need for explanations. I nodded slightly. Think what you want. Seeing me alive must be disappointing for you. But it's okay. I looked directly into Alex's indifferent eyes. Alex, let's get a divorce. I'll set you free so you can pursue your true love. I then turned to look at Lucas. And you, as you wished. I'm no longer your mother. Seeing their shocked faces, I silently laughed. How wonderful. We're all free now. I turned to leave, but Alex grabbed my wrist. His voice trembled. Laura, what do you mean? Just because I saved Anita first, you want a divorce? Nothing even happened to you. And you weren't really pregnant, you were just trying to deceive me. I haven't even blamed you. And now you want a divorce? Is it really necessary? I didn't bother to argue and tried to pull away, but his grip tightened, causing my wrist to turn red. William, who had been quietly standing beside me, suddenly had tears in his eyes. He angrily pried Alex's hand off and stood protectively in front of me, shouting, "Don't touch my mom. She just had surgery and is still weak. You're hurting her." I almost wanted to laugh. He stood there like a little tiger, glaring at Alex, stubbornly trying to protect me with his small frame. But he was too small, so when Lucas rushed over, he easily pinned him down. Lucas raised his fist and hit him. "You're lying. She's my mom, not yours." William had no strength to fight back. He curled up, shielding his head, but still refused to give in. "She isn't anymore. Mom said you didn't want her, you left her in the fire and wished she was dead. She said I saved her, and from now on, she'll only be my mom." Lucas froze for a moment, his eyes reddening, but when he looked down and saw the silver safety lock necklace around William's neck, his anger returned. He yanked the necklace off, clutching it tightly in his hand, his little face flushed with anger. "This was my mom's. How dare you wear it?" He suddenly looked up at me, a hint of pleading in his eyes. "Mom, didn't you say this necklace was a gift for me? Why did you give it to him?" I smiled and gently pulled him up, but instead of hugging him, I softly pushed him away. I helped William up, brushing the dust off his clothes. Then I pulled him into my arms and snatched the necklace from Lucas's hand. I calmly reminded him, "You had an identical necklace. You thought it was ugly and threw it in the trash. Last year, for his birthday, I spent half a month learning how to make 2 identical safety lock necklaces. My hands bled from all the hammering. I gave him the most perfect one and wore the other around my own neck. But when he received it, he didn't even bother to look at it before tossing it aside. Instead, he hugged the new Lego set Anna had given him and said to me with disdain, "Mom, please don't give me worthless things anymore." Seeing the necklace lying in the trash, my heart bled, but I could only smile awkwardly and nod, saying, "All right, now." He's trying to take William's necklace. When he saw I wasn't going to help him, tears of frustration welled up in his eyes. "Mom, I want this one. Can't you just, if you like it, ask your dad to buy you one?" I calmly interrupted him, taking William's hand, ready to leave. But when I turned around, I was met with Alex's dark, stormy gaze. "Laura, this child just said you had surgery. What kind of surgery?" Chapter 4. I shrugged indifferently. Of course, it was an abortion. Hearing me speak so casually, Alex's eyes began to redden. He struggled to control his emotions, trying to stay calm. But when he spoke, his voice was tinged with pain. "Laura, you aborted our child. Why?" At that moment, I looked at him as if he were an idiot. "Why? Alex, you're a firefighter. You know how many toxic gases are in that smoke. I told you I was pregnant, but you still gave the gas mask to Anna. And now you're asking me why? Are you pretending to be stupid?" I didn't want to look at him anymore. Even one more second made me feel like I might vomit. Alex's hands trembled as he reached out to hold me, but Anna suddenly clutched her forehead and collapsed softly to the side. Conveniently, she fell right into Alex's arms. The hand that was meant for me quickly pulled back to support her. Anna looked at me weakly, her voice laced with apology. "Laura, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your family reunion. I just felt a little dizzy. Alex knows I've always had a weak constitution. I watched her performance in silence, smiling politely to show I understood. Then, ignoring the anxious shouts of Alex and Lucas behind me, I took William's hand and walked away without looking back. Since that encounter in the hallway, Alex and Lucas had suddenly started showing concern for me. They began visiting my hospital room regularly, and even their attitude toward William softened somewhat. I didn't want to cause a scene before the divorce, so I didn't stop them, though I remained distant. William, however, would scowl every time they came. Only after they left would he return to his usual soft and adorable self. One day, he asked me, "Mommy Laura, can I not be friends with Lucas?" I looked at him, amused. Of course you don't have to, but why do you dislike him so much? I thought at his age, he would enjoy playing with peers. Because he hurt you. He clenched his fists, his face full of indignation. If you were my mommy, I'd never let you be in any danger. And also, he looked up at me, his eyes filled with concern. I can tell that every time you see him, you're not happy, but he doesn't care about your feelings, only about his own. I was slightly taken aback. Alex had once told me that a selfish woman like me would never be loved by anyone. But now, William loves me, and most importantly, I'm learning to love myself too. I thought Lucas and William could coexist peacefully until I was discharged from the hospital, but they ended up fighting. That day, Alex wasn't around, and Lucas came to my hospital room on his own, refusing to leave. While I was in the bathroom, they started wrestling with each other. When I came out, Lucas had William pinned down. I hurriedly pushed Lucas away and shielded William in my arms. Lucas, now off to the side, suddenly had tears welling up in his eyes, and he began to cry in frustration. "Mom, I wasn't bullying him," he said. I didn't let him finish and interrupted him. "No matter what William said that upset you, I apologize on his behalf." As I spoke, Alex walked in, smiling, but his smile froze on his face instantly, barely able to suppress his anger. His tone was unnervingly strained. "Laura, you're apologizing to your own son on behalf of someone else?" I held William close, gently wiping the tears from the corners of his eyes. "Alex." I looked up, my voice calm. "William may not be my biological child, but I've decided to adopt him. So, he's my child now." My resolve seemed to unsettle him, and Alex began to tremble. After a long silence, he forced a strained smile. "Fine. If you've decided to adopt him, then he's our child now. When you're discharged, we'll clear out the storage room at home so he can stay there. Laura, we're a family, and we should stay together." Before he could finish, William lifted his head. His tone was urgent, as if he feared he'd miss his chance. "I don't need a dad. Just a mom." I suddenly laughed and affectionately ruffled his hair. "All right, just mom. No dad." But when I looked up again, my smile vanished. "Alex, once I'm discharged, let's finalize the divorce." Chapter 5. The usually calm and composed Alex began to panic. He tried to grab my hand, but I easily avoided him, leaving him grasping at nothing but air. It seemed he had never imagined a day would come when I would reject his touch. Disbelief was written all over his face. His voice trembled slightly, a sign of the anger he was desperately trying to suppress. "Laura, have you really thought this through? If we divorce, Lucas will stay with me. You won't be allowed to see him again." I lowered my gaze, my expression remaining calm and untroubled. "Fine. After all, once Anna becomes his mother, he won't want to see me anyway." What surprised me was that Lucas suddenly burst into tears and threw himself into my arms. "No, Mom. I just don't like you controlling me. I don't want Aunt Anna to be my mom. He was still my child." After all, I hesitated for a long time but finally wrapped my arms around his shoulders. He cried bitterly in my arms, clutching my sleeves tightly as if he feared I would disappear if he let go. It had been so long since he had relied on me like this. For a long time, he refused to let me touch him. He would say, "Mom, I'm grown up now. Stop hugging me all the time, it's annoying." But then he would turn around and cuddle with Anna. It used to make my heart ache. But eventually, I grew numb, though I never gave up trying. After all, he once loved me the most. When he was just learning to talk, the first word he said was Mom. When he was learning to walk, he would stumble and fall into my arms. During the days when Alex, tired of me, preferred staying at work over coming home, Lucas was my entire support. Back then, he would sweetly call me Mom and say that I was his favorite. His eyes were bright, full of love. But then, Anna returned. At first, when Alex wasn't available, Lucas refused to go with her when she came to pick him up. But later, when Anna brought him the toys he had wanted for so long, things I couldn't afford to buy him, he started to change. And eventually, the love in his eyes when he looked at me disappeared. I knew then it was time to let go. Lucas was dragged away by Alex. As he was leaving, he was still crying. In the past, whenever I saw him cry, even just a single tear, my heart would ache. But now, I didn't feel much. I even found his crying a bit annoying. It's not that I don't love him anymore. I just don't want to give so much of my heart anymore. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Alex brought Lucas to pick me up. In all the years we were married, not even when I gave birth to Lucas did he come to pick me up. I still remember how cold it was that day, and it rained a little when I was discharged. I held newborn Lucas in one arm and a bag of clothes in the other. I called Alex, asking if he could come pick me up. His voice over the phone was filled with impatience. Laura, do you not have legs or what? It's just a short distance, and you need someone to pick you up. You're being ridiculous. I thought that was just how he was naturally cold. But later, I saw with my own eyes how tenderly he cared for Anna. That's when I realized it wasn't that he was cold by nature. He just didn't love me. I walked home hand in hand with William. Before being discharged, I had already found a new apartment online. It's a small 2-bedroom place, small, but cozy. Alex drove us to the new apartment building. As I got out of the car, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Laura, have you really made up your mind? There was a look in his eyes that I couldn't quite understand. A kind of hope. I looked him straight in the eyes and calmly nodded. The hope in his eyes instantly vanished, leaving behind the usual indifferent expression. Chapter 6. All right, Laura. I'll meet you at the Civil Affairs Bureau in 3 days. I got out of the car with William, and Lucas, with red, tear-filled eyes, tried to follow us, but Alex held him back. He struggled, crying and pleading for me to take him with us. Mom, I'm sorry. Please don't leave me. I won't play games anymore, and I don't want those toys either. Mom, please don't go. The car door slammed shut, and through the window, I saw Alex holding him down firmly. William gently squeezed my hand. What's wrong? I looked down, trying to keep my voice steady as I asked him, but the choke in my voice betrayed me. He stood on his tiptoes and patted my head. Mom, don't be sad. I promise I'll be very good. I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I covered my face, quietly sobbing. I had once given everything without reservation, so taking it all back now felt as painful as peeling off my own skin. But it doesn't matter. Everything will pass. 3 days later, after completing the divorce process with Alex, I immediately took William to finalize the adoption paperwork. Once the legal procedures were done, William and I officially became a family. I rented a small storefront not far from home and opened a little flower shop. It had always been my dream. But in the past, I was too busy taking care of Lucas, and later, too busy fighting with Anna, to make it happen. Now, free and untethered, I could do whatever I wanted. Business wasn't particularly booming, but it was enough to support William and me. The days passed by in quiet simplicity. Most of my customers were neighbors, and gradually, I started to build a base of regulars. William also made some good friends at school, especially a girl named Helen, who was very close to him. She would stop by the shop every day after school to play for a while. Her father always came to pick her up, and they'd leave with a pink rose each time. One day, I casually asked if the rose was for Helen's mother. He hesitated for a moment before nodding slightly. You must have a great relationship with your wife. It's really enviable, I said, smiling, but his eyes suddenly filled with tears. It's not for my wife. Seeing my surprised expression, he looked a little embarrassed. It's for my sister. Helen is my niece. 2 years ago, my sister and her husband died in a car accident. His voice grew choked with emotion, and my heart ached as I listened. There was no one else to take care of Helen, so I brought her to live with me. The 2 little ones, who had been busy playing games, suddenly came over. With mischievous grins, they pushed us together. I suddenly blushed, pretending to be angry as I playfully swatted William on the bottom. When I looked up, I met his somewhat intense gaze, and I felt so shy that I wanted to hide. Over time, I got to know him better. His name is Jack, and he runs his own company, doing quite well for himself. Most importantly, he's single. I'm not entirely opposed to the idea of a new relationship, but the wounds I've suffered haven't fully healed yet. So while I remained clear-headed about his advances, neither rejecting nor rushing to accept them, I stayed cautious. One day, I took William to the supermarket to shop. When we stepped outside, I realized it was raining heavily. We stood at the entrance, holding 2 large bags of groceries, anxiously waiting, but the rain only got heavier, and every passing taxi was already occupied. Even the ride-sharing app showed hundreds of people ahead of us in line. I was growing increasingly anxious. I had left the house thinking we'd be back quickly, and the chicken soup on the stove hadn't been turned off yet. Just as I was feeling helpless, Jack's car pulled up in front of us. He hurriedly opened the car door, too concerned to even grab an umbrella. Shielding his head with his hand, he quickly ran over to me and naturally took the shopping bags from my hands. Chapter 7. William proudly showed off the smartwatch on his wrist. Mom, I just sent our location to Helen, and Uncle Jack got here so quickly. Jack blushed a little, reaching out to ruffle William's hair, and then winked at him behind my back. I couldn't help but laugh. It felt so nice to be cared for, worried that I might get wet. Jack even took off his jacket and placed it over my head, gently shielding me as he escorted me to the car. Sitting in the back seat, I watched William and Jack chatting and laughing together, and my eyes grew a little misty. When we got to my building, Jack insisted on carrying the grocery bags upstairs. I didn't refuse, and William walked between us, holding each of our hands. As I glanced at our reflection in the puddles, I suddenly thought that being a family of 3 like this wouldn't be so bad. We were laughing and joking as we went upstairs, but as soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I froze. Lucas was standing at my door, holding a beautifully wrapped box, and Alex was beside him, smiling. The moment Alex saw Jack, his smile vanished. He forced a smile, but his voice was strained and awkward. Laura, how have you been? Pretty good, I replied nonchalantly, stepping past him and Lucas to unlock the door. Jack, still holding William's hand, followed me inside. Alex tried to come in with Lucas as well, but I stopped them with a raised hand. If there's nothing important, don't come in. Alex froze in place, completely stunned. Lucas ignored my words, trying to slip under my arm to get inside, but his father quickly grabbed him by the collar and pulled him back. Alex swallowed hard before speaking with difficulty. Laura, do you remember what day it is today? Seeing my confused expression, Lucas couldn't hold it in any longer and blurted out, "It's your wedding anniversary." He forced a smile and held up the gift box. Mom, Dad picked out a beautiful ring for you, back when we got married, probably out of reluctance. Alex didn't even bother to get me a wedding ring. After Lucas was born, I mentioned a few times that I wanted a ring, but he always coldly refused. There were times when Alex reluctantly took me along with Lucas to the mall, and I would linger at the jewelry counters, gazing longingly at the beautiful rings. Each time, he pretended not to see, quickly dragging Lucas away, leaving me to awkwardly chase after them. I didn't reach out to take the gift box from Lucas. I no longer needed a ring from him. I have the means to buy one for myself now, and I no longer need someone else to make me happy. When he saw that I wasn't taking the box, Lucas grew anxious. He opened the box himself, pulled out the ridiculously beautiful diamond ring, and shoved it into Alex's hand. Dad, hurry and put it on Mom so she can forgive us. Alex grabbed my hand, trying to slip the ring onto my finger, but I gently pushed him away. Alex, I don't need it anymore. We've been divorced for a long time. You should leave. Take Lucas with you. And don't come back to disrupt my life. His hand froze awkwardly in midair, trembling slightly, but he stubbornly refused to pull it back. Laura, can you give me one more chance? There was a rare note of pleading in his voice. His eyes were red, filled with desperation. Before I could respond, Jack stepped forward and began pushing him out the door. Perhaps he was afraid I might waver. Chapter 8. But Alex didn't budge. He was usually so calm, but now he suddenly erupted in anger. He grabbed Jack by the collar, throwing a punch at him. Get lost! This is my family business. What right do you have to push me out? Seeing him so unreasonable, I couldn't hold back any longer. With a loud slap, the air fell silent. Alex clutched his face, staring at me in disbelief. I stepped forward and took Jack's hand, smiling. I looked at Alex. I forgot to introduce you. This is my boyfriend, Jack. So yes, I'd say he has every right to make you leave. Alex raised his hand to cover his eyes, crying like a child in front of me. After our divorce, I had once imagined him regretting everything, but seeing him so pathetic now didn't bring me the satisfaction I expected. Maybe it's because I truly no longer care, and nothing he does can stir me anymore. Before leaving, he reached out, wanting to hug me one last time, but I blocked him. Alex, don't come back anymore, please. Let me have some peace, okay? Alex nodded silently and left with Lucas. As they were leaving, Lucas clung to my leg, begging me to let him stay. His face was flushed from crying, and he couldn't even string together a full sentence. Mom, please, don't leave me. I promise. I won't talk back to you anymore, and I'll do my homework. Just please, don't make me go. Alex, with a stern expression, grabbed his collar and practically dragged him away. Lucas didn't look back. Even as they disappeared into the elevator, he never once glanced at me. It's all in the past now. It's time for us to move on and find our peace. 6 months later, Jack proposed to me. When he got down on one knee and pulled out the ring, I couldn't help but tear up. The ring was big, beautiful, even more beautiful than the ones I used to admire in the store windows. As he slipped it onto my finger with trembling hands, the crowd around us burst into applause. Everyone was blessing us, and I felt a deep sense of peace. Maybe this is what love is supposed to be. It makes you feel secure, without constantly worrying about losing it. Most importantly, it makes you feel worthy of being loved, and I am worthy of all of this. Jack gave me a grand wedding. He took care of everything, not letting me worry about a single detail. I didn't send Alex an invitation, but on the day of the wedding, he still showed up. As I stood arm in arm with Jack at the entrance of the hotel, I saw Alex from a distance, holding Lucas's hand, standing on the other side of the street. Lucas struggled constantly, trying to break free and run towards me, but Alex held on to him tightly, refusing to let go. His eyes were terrifyingly red, and when our eyes finally met, he couldn't hold back and began to cry. I calmly looked away, my face adorned with a gentle smile. Unlike the smile I had on my wedding day with Alex, this time, it was a genuine smile of true happiness. Epilogue. After the divorce, Alex suffered from insomnia for a long time. He was afraid to close his eyes because whenever he did, Lara's image would appear before him. He was even afraid to go home. The living room still bore the scars of the fire, and every time he stepped inside, he couldn't help but start hating himself. He hated himself for choosing Anna back then. He also couldn't stop himself from hating Anna, and even Lucas. If it hadn't been for Lucas begging him to save Anna first, maybe Laura wouldn't have left. He finally, belatedly, realized that it was Laura he truly loved. As for Anna, she was nothing more than a regret from his youth. So when Anna asked him if they should get married, he refused without a second thought. Anna, with tears in her eyes, asked him why. He looked at her face, filled with disgust, and almost through gritted teeth. He said, "Because you can't even compare to a single strand of Lara's hair." Lucas cried in front of him many times, begging to see his mom. Each time, Alex would glare at him venomously, telling him, "Your mom doesn't want you anymore. She has a new child now, and you mean nothing to her." He watched coldly as Lucas cried until he nearly passed out, without a shred of sympathy. If it hadn't been for him, Lara wouldn't have given up, wouldn't have left him. Lucas hated him too, and that hatred only grew stronger as he got older. Eventually, they stopped talking to each other altogether. On the day of Lara's wedding, Alex took Lucas to the scene. He stood across the street, watching her smile, and suddenly, he felt a sense of relief. She really did look happy, and her smile was truly beautiful. When they first got married, she had smiled at him like that too. At the time, Alex thought she would always be by his side, so he had recklessly hurt her. He had lost her with his own hands, and the most detestable person had always been himself. Alex watched helplessly as she walked away, hand in hand with Jack, disappearing from his view. He slowly crouched down, burying his face in his hands, crying uncontrollably. Regret and sorrow overwhelmed him, but what could he do? He and Lara were finally over.